Right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. Well, it seems the Remoaning Chancellor Phillip Hammond is on his way out. He led the Tory rebellion last week, voting against the government. A first for any serving cabinet minister, proving what a traitor he really is. The Conservative MP and Brexiteer Jacob Rees-Mogg was talking to the Daily Mail's associate editor, Andrew Pearce, while filling in for Nigel Farage on the LBC show earlier today. They was discussing Phillip Hammond's resignation and the treacherous things he has done regarding Brexit and how great it is that he is off, even though we all knew They was discussing Phillip Hammond's resignation and the treacherous things he has done regarding Brexit. They also point out how great it is that he is off, even though we all know Boris would have sacked him day one anyway. Hammond also decided to do another first for a serving minister by announcing his plans to quit live on the Andrew Marr show earlier today.
Now, I started that question by saying, as Chancellor,
Indeed.
Do you think you're going to be sacked?
No, I'm sure I'm not going to be sacked because I'm going to resign before we get to that point. I intend,
Really?
Assuming that Boris Johnson becomes the next Prime Minister, I understand that his conditions for serving in his government would include accepting a no-deal exit on the 31st of October. That is not something I could ever sign up to. It's very important that a Prime Minister is able to have a Chancellor who is closely aligned with him in terms of policy, and I therefore intend to resign to Theresa May before she goes to the Palace to tender her own resignation on Wednesday.
I can never remember a Chancellor of the Exchequer, or indeed another senior minister, announcing his resignation live on national television. A moment, I suppose. But can I ask...
It's a first, Andrew.
Being the first minister to go against the government whip and openly encouraging other MPs to do the same was not enough for this shitweasel. He had to go further by announcing his resignation live on air, which seems to be a little bit disrespectful to his party and current leader Maidbot. But this guy openly disrespects the public, so we should not be surprised by this, really, should we? Now let's check out the LBC clip.
I'm going to go to Andrew Pearce, the associate editor of the Daily Mail, who is going to comment on the breaking news of the Chancellor's decision to resign. Andrew, good morning.
Morning, Jacob.
So what's your thought about this?
Not a surprise, really.
Not a surprise? Is it a loss?
No, it's good riddance. And, he's been a consistent thorn in the side of all the Brexiteer ministers. He is completely out of sorts with Boris Johnson. He was going to be fired, so he's jumping before he was pushed. It's a rather undignified way to go, frankly. You'd have thought he'd have just waited and... but he's trying to steal Boris's thunder. He's trying to cause maximum damage, and it's extraordinary for somebody who's been in the cabinet for 9 years to behave in such a petty way, frankly. But no loss, Jacob.
Shouldn't he have resigned before he abstained and encouraged other ministers not to support the government on Thursday? Wasn't that the honourable thing to do?
That would have been completely the honourable thing to do. But, of course, he was trying to cause maximum damage, and he's been trying to cause maximum damage for a very long time. And I think this shows now, Jacob, he's shown up in his true colours. He's an ardent Remainer. He was never signed up to Brexit, even though the referendum was a clear instruction for the British people to get us out of the European Union. When he said he supported Brexit, he was speaking with a forked tongue. I think he's had quite a good success as Chancellor in the sense that the deficit's been reduced, but he's behaved very badly about the 26 billion war chest that's been amassed. He's been reluctant to spend any money on no-deal planning. I think in his last few years have shown that he should have been moved the 2017 general election, or whenever she did her last reshuffle, he should have got the order of the boot. And I think, Jacob, it shows whoever Boris puts in that job, he or she should be a Brexiteer.
I think that must be right, because we need somebody who will use the power of the Treasury to help make Brexit a success, rather than trying to undermine it at every turn.
Yeah, and look, the next Chancellor can support radical tax cuts, whether it's in corporation tax or raising personal allowances to take people out of tax. He can also deploy money to help with the no-deal Brexit planning. What he can't do, we can't have another Chancellor who sits on the sidelines carping and urging fellow ministers to rebel on a three-line whip. His behaviour has been utterly treacherous in the last couple of weeks.
I think that's unprecedented, don't you, for a serving Chancellor to encourage other cabinet ministers to vote against the government without resigning?
I've never heard of it. And if you go back to the psychodrama of the Blair-Brown years, Gordon Brown as Chancellor of the Exchequer for years, he was scheming and plotting to replace Tony Blair. But I do not recall once him not supporting his government on a three-line whip. He may have mysteriously been out of the country for a crucial vote, but there was never any evidence that he was urging his fellow Labour MPs to openly rebel against Tony Blair. And that was a completely dysfunctional relationship. This is uncharted territory. And actually, what the Prime Minister, Theresa May, should have done, if she really wanted a good legacy, she should have sacked all those ministers who rebelled.
Absolutely. The constitutional principle of collective responsibility is very important. You generously gave Phillip Hammond credit for bringing down the deficit, but don't you think we ought to give that to George Osborne in reality? Because deficits don't come down to a decision made in that year. They come down in response to decisions made several years before.
Yeah, and of course, George Osborne was the architect of the austerity programme. I was just trying to I didn't want to appear too negative, Jake. I was desperately racking my brain thinking, can I say anything positive about this man? But you're right, really. He inherited the austerity policy and he stuck to it. So I suppose in that sense he was at least consistent. But he's been unimaginative, briefing against Brexit ministers, and Boris. And I know if you talk to people like David Davis when he was Brexit secretary, and Dominic Raab, that they said that they weren't just negotiating and fighting with Brussels, they were fighting the whole time with the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Yeah. Absolutely appalling when they were trying to deliver government policy as articulated in the Tory manifesto to get us out of the European Union, and they had to spend half their time in hand-to-hand combat with the occupant of number 11 Downing Street. So good riddance to him, Jacob, and let's hope the next one does what's on the tin and helps get us out of the European Union.
So the Daily Mail editor states the trouble this shitweasel has caused for the Brexiteers in the Tory party and the whole Brexit process in general. His recent actions have been aimed at stealing Boris Johnson's thunder and causing maximum chaos for Boris Johnson when he takes over. He calls Soyboy Hammond petty, but points out it will be no loss to the government. Trust me when I say the British public won't miss him either. Jacob points out this shitweasel should have resigned before abstaining on Thursday and encouraging other Tory MPs to vote down the government, when actually it's yet another failure on the part of Maybot, who even now continues to show her complete incompetence by not sacking him, Rory the Soyboy Stewart, and the other fuckpig cabinet ministers who abstained from voting. He says resigning before the vote would have been the honourable thing to do, forgetting these Remoaners have no honour and wipe their ass with the democratic vote to leave the EU because they disagree with it, so he was never going to be honourable, was he? The Mail editor points out that this tit is an ardent Remoaner, like that was ever up for debate, before trying to be impartial, which is shocking for a journalist these days, saying he did okay bringing down the deficit, of course forgetting he is just doing the work others had laid out before him, which Jacob rightly corrects him on. You have to remember that the fuckpig Phillip Hammond's only achievement in office is similar to Maybot's. They both ruined Brexit consistently over the last couple of years, which is what their aim was all along, I'm sure. So that will be their only achievement. I agree with Andrew that the next Chancellor needs to be an ardent Brexiteer, ready to get us out of the EU superstate, not the snivelling fuckpig Remoaners we have had before, pointing out Phillip Hammond's behaviour has been utterly treacherous in the last few weeks, calling his treachery beyond that of even Gordon Brown, who schemed and plotted against the warmongering soy boy Tony Blair. Being compared to Brown is not good, obviously. To be considered lower than Gordon Brown is the ultimate embarrassment. That's like being compared to Diane Aberpotamus. I find it hilarious that neither one of them could find one good thing to say about Phillip Hammond, even when they tried. Sometimes it seems, even when a journalist tries to be impartial, it's not possible. I guess if any journalist took an impartial look at a Remoaner, they won't be able to find anything good about them. That's why they don't and just back the Remain position 99% of the time, I guess. So I'm going to end the video there, guys. Let me know what you think about Jacob Rees-Mogg and the editor of the Daily Mail shitting on Phillip Hammond down in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video as it helps the channel a lot, and I'll see you all in the next one.